Welcome to episode 13 of the Sylum Rants podcast. Today is Tuesday, not Monday. Yeah. So I didn't do the episode on Monday, which was yesterday, because. So let me start off by saying that with the name change of my podcast and the name change of my YouTube channel, which before was MMA Nerd, and I accidentally pretty much took somebody's name unknowingly, and then I switched it to the Sylum Rants podcast, which is the podcast name, and Sylum Rants Martial Arts as my Instagram handle and as my YouTube channel name. And I did this mainly because I didn't want to be boxed in with only MMA stuff. I want to do martial arts stuff, like a bunch of different martial arts and principles of other martial arts because I train many martial arts and I'm very interested in many other martial arts and especially how they adapt to MMA and what principles can we get from them to adapt to MMA, or we can be using them and evolving them in the sport. Integrating them would probably be a better word. And also to not just pigeonhole me in martial arts, but to talk other things, like I guess kind of personal life stuff, other interests. Like I'm really into philosophy, I'm into psychology, I'm into history, I'm into many things. So I didn't want to be pigeonholed by only MMA. So I'm pretty glad that I changed my name. Um, but yeah, so how do I put this? And I'm not going to edit any of this, so I'm sorry if there's a lot of downtimes and me having to repeat myself because, it is what it is. So, yeah, so I didn't do it Monday because I just felt like a little doubtful, right? I've been feeling a little doubtful, even though it's episode 13. It's so early, like it's so unbelievably early, and even the little bit of feedback I've been getting, which is very small, but even then I'm very appreciative of. I didn't even expect any, but somewhere along the line, I guess I didn't expect success or anything like that's so ridiculous. But I guess I kind of want a little bit more engagement. And I think what really, really got me down was the last podcast, uh, which nobody heard, pretty much. Was me saying at the end that if you if you got here to this part of the podcast, please put a thumbs up, right? Because I wanted to know how many people actually make it to the end of the podcast, or people just liking it and putting comments just to be nice or to get me to subscribe to them or to follow them or to like their stuff, or are they truly listening? I got no comments, no thumbs up, none, zero. So to me that means nobody's really listening. It was like a true like I can't lie to myself and say, man, I'm doing this and people are gonna listen and enjoy what I have to say or enjoy my podcast. But that wasn't the case at all. Nobody listened. So it makes me think I'm talking now, nobody's listening, and I have to just try to be positive, stay positive, and just like how I said in the very, very first podcast, this isn't about the attention I get. This isn't about anything exterior. It's 100% interior. This is internal. It's a path of growth and for me to get over public speaking and to put out my thoughts of what I think of martial arts out there and put out my thoughts in general and to have some feedback so I can grow. That was the point of doing all this, and I guess somewhere along the line I still looked at it that way, but also it became more competitive for me and I wanted more and more, and I felt like that put a lot of pressure on me, and I started doing two a week, and then I got kind of like, oh my god, like I have to do two a week, and that means I have to have a lot of notes down because it has to be of quality, and it can't just be a bunch of quantity. I can't just be putting a lot of stuff out there and just it be garbage. And you can say I'm still kind of doing that because right now, what substance is there besides me talking about me? But I have to see that even if it's not perfect, even if it's not perfect, and I'm just talking about me right now, which is probably not the most entertaining thing and of the most best quality, it's still me putting out a product, and it's still me talking to whatever fan base I may possibly have in the future by just having this out here. Or even not a fan base, but I like to think of more people that I can communicate with and have feedback to help my growth. To help my growth as a person. And this is where philosophy and psychology come in, and that's why if you go on my Instagram, I have only my podcast posts on there, and my other posts are just philosophy or some sort of psychology. Um, it's not really it's nothing to do with MMA news at all. My podcast, I bring up MMA news, but that's because I'm dissecting the fights, but I don't care much for the drama of the sport. It could be fun. I put memes on my story to just give something entertaining, right? And see people's reactions to things, and but it's mainly for me to understand technique and to understand martial arts and the history, and to integrate my knowledge into my training and to my students. And like I said, me being a coach is number one priority at all times because I have a responsibility to my students. Of course, me training is important because me training it helps me enhance my thought process and my methods of training to then instill that into my students. So there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that. And so, yeah, all of this has been going through my head, and it made me doubt myself. And I didn't, yesterday it was rough. I had some personal family issues. I'm at the gym a lot due to the pandemic. Obviously, business isn't doing well. It's not. Who wants to join a martial art gym and be super close to somebody during these times? Nobody's signing up. Nobody's signing up. We got like one kid to sign up during this entire time. And yeah, we haven't been open for that many months, I guess. If any, I don't want to say where I'm at, but let's say I'm in Florida. And well, I said it before. Yeah, I'm in Miami because I talked about how Jorge is from where I live, which is Miami. But yeah, okay. So I never pause in my podcast. I'm gonna pause right now because I got a really important call. Even though I can edit that out, I'm just gonna keep it because I feel like then it's more like we're in a conversation instead of me putting this edit thing where I'm talking at you. I want to sound like we're kind of talking together. It's more live, a live conversation. I don't know if that makes sense. If you make it to this far, let me know if it makes sense. If it feels more authentic, because I want it to sound authentic. I don't want to sound like I'm talking to you guys from the heart. I'm talking to you guys directly from off the cuff in many ways. Even though sometimes I may have notes, I want it off the cuff. I want it like I'm talking to you guys, not you guys are listening to me talk at you, which can be very informative because sometimes you just want straight information. You don't want to have a conversation with somebody. You want straight, fast, easy, quick information. And I guess you wouldn't be listening to a podcast at that point. I think you would be watching more of a short YouTube video. There's many ways people consume content, but that's besides the point. So, yeah, I'm just going to keep this consistent even if it's just me doing what I'm doing right now, which is talking away at other things. And if this is really bad, let me know if this is, hey man, like, be like, dude, this is not, maybe you shouldn't go in this direction. Maybe let's start doing more editing, more prettier stuff, and add more, and whatever. This is just terrible content. We don't want to hear you. We just want to hear what you have to say about the UFC fights. And if that's the case, that means I'll still, it's my podcast, so I'll still talk about me in certain ways, but I'll just not do this long form thing as much and maybe do less, but it would be more precise about the fights. So just let me know on that. But again, my goal is to have close connections with people and to create kind of like a little community where we can all just talk about many subjects, mainly how they all pertain to martial arts. That would be big. The reason why I like philosophy and psychology is because I like to adapt those principles and add them into the mental aspect of training and fighting, and even how you can relate that logic into training logic. So I believe there's overlapping things when it comes to martial arts and psychology and philosophy and obviously history. It's important to understand history because then you understand how techniques evolved, and it can help you in a technical sense, which I feel like a lot of people want to enhance their technique, whether they know it or not. They're just trying to enhance their technique, whether it's to enhance their argumentative technique for why they're a fan, or they're trying to create a point of technique in, let's say, a style, saying, oh, this fighter or this style works better, or maybe just saying, oh, arm bars are great, and here's a breakdown on armbar, or maybe there's many ways to why you're increasing your technique and your knowledge, and various ways of consuming the information. It's okay. You got what I meant by that point. So I'm not gonna keep going on and on and on and on and on and on that. So yeah, we are gonna talk some fights. Let me see if I want to talk about. I feel like there's something else I wanted to talk about. So we pretty much talked about. Yeah, we talked about pretty much what I wanted to cover. So let's cover this weekend's fights that just happened, with Joseph Benavidez versus Figueiredo. Figueiredo. You know, you would think I'm Hispanic, I can say that better, but whatever. Um, yeah, that knee bar that Ariane got on Luana, that was crazy because she was stuck in a deep, deep calf slicer. Um, to the point where when she leaned back, I thought it made it worse. It was really bad. But that knee bar was that whole situation, that whole double submission game that they were in, where it was like either one of them, both of them, let's say, didn't get out of that unscathed. Her knee is definitely not feeling well the next day, unless she has super flexible knees, which is the case. Especially for women, they tend to be more flexible in the knees and in the hips. Um, but that looked super tight, that calf slicer. But hey, she got the win. She got the knee bar. Rafael, man, his last name is rough to say, versus Mark Dykes. Dykes. I always forget how to say his name. Um, so Mark, he has a very flashy game. He has so much skill, as in he can do, even in the bottom, he has so much skill to. He's able to go for attacks very well. He's able to be very creative with his attacks, but also execute them extremely well. The only problem is his timing. If you look at him fight, his timing is off. He doesn't understand distance and when to apply things. His application is phenomenal. It's the timing that's off. And you see this with so many fighters. So many fighters, especially in the UFC, because of the small gloves, that they get away with great execution. And executing something is way easier than timing something. For example, Anderson Silva probably didn't have the greatest technique, but his timing was phenomenal. His ability to understand his distance and when to strike and when to move out of the strike, and knowing when they're going to strike and moving, even though he was out of position, his footwork was not the best, his hands, he didn't have great fundamentals, but just his ability to time things and see things was huge, which I think Mark Dykes, I it's hard for me to say his name. His execution is really good. It's just his timing is off, especially his distance. His understanding of distance is just, he doesn't have a good lead attack, and having a good lead attack usually helps you understand timing because you're playing with distance and time. Well, I meant a good jab helps you understand your distance better. Having a good lead attack helps you understand distance better because you have to learn how to not muscle through with attacks. But if you're attacking with your lead jab, let's say, you're not gonna have as much power So being able to understand when to throw that jab and not throw that jab requires a lot of understanding distance and feints and when how to set it up. And because you can't just throw it out there. If you just throw out a jab is not going to be as strong as a cross. So you have to be careful how you throw out your pawn out, right? You can't just throw out your pawn to sacrifice your king. You got to be careful. So it's all so yeah, so he doesn't have any lead attacks. There you see a lot of fighters like that, like Lyoto Machida back in the day. He didn't have great front lead attacks, and because of that, he was pretty easy to start timing because he would time your your shot with a cross or with any type of intercepting strike coming from his backside. And eventually people were able to time his timing because he would just strike with bare shots. So that's what was going on there. Rafael or Rafael, which is I'm guessing is Rafael because he's not Brazilian, so Rafael wouldn't make sense. I believe he's Peter Yan's striking coach. Someone say. I wasn't listening to the commentary because I was actually doing other things on the side. I was doing some business stuff, so I couldn't listen to the commentary as well. But I believe he was that he is Peter Yan's striking coach. And if that's the case, well then he needs to show Peter Yan more head movement because Peter Yan doesn't have great head movement. They both have fast hands. Peter Yan has super fast hands, especially his jab is lightning fast and has great timing. He just doesn't have great head movement, and his defense is good, but he he has a little bit of problems with his distance. And I say that a lot because the distance in MMA is so different than when you have gloves on or you're just boxing or just kickboxing. And people don't, I guess, they don't understand that concept that there's a difference between the distance of boxing and kickboxing and in MMA. It's totally different. So I think that's one thing that needs improving, but that's a whole nother topic that I've talked about and I've beaten to death at this point. Um, yeah. So he needs to show Peter Yan some head movement because his head movement is way better than Peter Yan's, and if Peter Yan had some good head movement, I feel like that would help him, especially since he's very boxing oriented. Um, the next one was Kelvin Gastelum versus Jeff. But I think it's Shigarami type situation. You try to like kick your leg out as fast as you can. Try to get your knee off of that knee line, or try to twist your ankle out so they can't turn the heel hook. It's just a way to escape, and that didn't work. So instead of continuing the roll and maybe kicking on the butt, or maybe going 2-on-1 on the hands, or kicking off the top leg for the ashigrami, or kicking off the elbow that's going for the heel hook, and then turning your heel in. Instead of doing any of that, he just turned into the heel hook. That was super amateur, especially coming from a 10th Planet school and 10th Planet lineage. I'm very surprised that he had no idea how to escape that. It looked very, very amateur. It was bad. Um, yeah. So just he needs to work on getting his knee past the knee line. I'm pretty sure he knows all this. He just needs to drill it more. He needs to work on it more, do more situational sparring, and yeah. And then now we have Figueiredo and Joseph Benavidez, and that was rough. Joseph Benavidez did not look good. Man, Figueiredo has some power in his hands. For 125, his power is crazy at 125. And Joseph Benavidez has this weird thing where he tucks his elbows in and flares his wrist out. Like he fights so weird looking. He fights so weird looking. And for someone that has good jiu-jitsu, it looks like he didn't know how to escape the back. It was very weird. What he did was he looked like a fish out of water. It looked really weird, and instead of him fighting the hands, he was fighting the hooks. Like he just sacrificed his neck and was trying to peel off the hooks or just stand up. It didn't look well. The choke was terrible. He fell asleep looking like at the camera. That's if you're Megan O'Leary, which is his wife, that must have been rough to see. That's rough to see. I I I I would not want to see my friends or my loved one be choked out on camera like that. It looks like they're dying. It looks like they died. It's not good. So yeah, um, that is pretty much it for breaking down the fights and my little rant in the beginning about me being all sad and depressed, I guess. And yeah, so I don't know what other topics I was gonna talk about. I had some other topics. So yeah, I think that just concludes this podcast, guys. This was episode 13 of the Sylum Rants podcast, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I know there was a lot of there it was different, I guess. Um, but yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed it. So like, comment, subscribe to his Instagram, like it, and follow me. That would be great. And if you guys have any questions, let me know. I will definitely cover it. Yeah, guys, so thank you for joining me on this one, and I am out. Have a great weekend. I'll be back Friday. Maybe we will see. Take care, guys.